Free TV, in association with getoutofdebtfree.org.
For a lot of people, debt is a huge problem afflicting their lives and holding them back. Not much has changed. Thankfully, there are some great minds working on solutions in this area too, and genuine, people-centered solutions. I spoke to John Witterick, who runs the website getoutofdebtfree.org. The website has become so popular that it now appears above the official government website on a Google search.
As far as individual debt goes, I think it's the most powerful way that our lives are controlled. Our lives are controlled in a number of ways. I think obviously television, radio, newspapers, just social control, whereas we all, nobody really wants to stand out, and we all want to behave normally, and it's only children that dance around and do exactly what they want to do, and then they get to a certain age and they start conforming, especially when they get to teenage years and they start really conforming, even though they might have purple hair but all their mates look the same, you see, so they're actually conforming within society. But this level of control, which applies to all of us, is very, very powerful. However, the most powerful, in my opinion, and it's not just if you're in debt, even if you've got money, people are always aware of money. Some of the people that come up to me and speak to me in my talks, after my talks, when I'm talking about the banking system collapsing, it's the ones with money who are more worried, obviously, than the ones without, because they're really fearful, because they've built up this sort of buffer to keep them safe. So, money generally is a very, very powerful means of controlling people. However, debt is the way they lend us money, and they do it with countries. Obviously, we've seen this with all countries that have got record levels of debt. But personally, people with huge amounts of debt, there are people committing suicide because they've got a piece of paper with a whole load of red letters on it saying, and they're being, this is serious, this is quite serious. So, and I know how difficult it is, because I get so many emails coming to me, and we get people on the forum who are literally, they might have been doing really well, they had a sort of certain amount of debt, and then suddenly they have an accident or an illness, and they can no longer work, and they end up with all this debt, and they get into fear. And so it's very, very powerful how your confidence, and as soon as your confidence goes, your motivation and everything else just disappears, purely because you're being worried about, oh my goodness, I'm in debt, I'm really fearful. And so it's a matter of waking up and empowering yourself. And all I do, and all Ceylon does on the website, is that we try and help people. The website being getoutofdebtfree.org. We try and help people to actually empower themselves to actually overcome this. Basically what it wasn't something I was planning to do. It's just that I ended up in debt. I ended up in a lot of fear, and I was really quite worried about it. Then I started looking on the internet and actually looking at ways that I can actually work around it, but not conventionally by going along to citizens' advice or anything, because everyone else says just pay it. But I was looking for a way of dealing with it, which I felt dealt with it, but also empowered myself. And I was looking for everything, and I couldn't find much until I found Mary Elizabeth Croft. And suddenly I found her site, and what she was talking about was, hang on, this is really interesting. She started talking about the banks being fraudulent and how it all being a big scam. And the more I looked into it, the more it made sense. And she's got a book. The book goes on for about 90 pages, but I read it and reread it. And she started giving us clues on how to deal with it. But what she didn't do is give us any letters. So what I did, I thought, read it all up. I said, okay, I've got to put this in, I've got to put that in. Wrote it all up. And got these letters together and started sending them off to the banks 10 days apart, as she suggested. And suddenly I got the debt collectors giving up, and then the banks giving up, and it was the other way around. The banks would give up, send it on to debt collectors, I think. And whereas I started off with debt collectors chasing me, and I was getting really nervous and panicky, and it ended up that, hang on, this is actually quite fun. I'm enjoying this. And it even got to a stage where when the debt collectors would phone up, I used to actually enjoy, first of all, the first thing I did, I'd be listening to radio trick there. I'd say, well, hang on a moment, and I'd just put the phone down, and I'd put it next to my stereo, and I'd have Radio 3 playing in the day just to keep me all calm. And so they'd be hearing this sort of dreary music, and I'd leave them there for about 3 minutes, pick the phone up, say, oh, hello, are you still there? Yeah, just one moment. And I'd just keep them hanging on, because the way I was thinking about it was, if they're not chasing me, they're not chasing anyone else. But, I had some fun. And, of course, the other thing you can do is ask them security questions. So when they phone up, you say, oh, hello. Yeah, they say, is Jon Witterick there? Oh, who's speaking? Oh, it's so-and-so from, a company. Okay, can I just ask you some security questions? And ask them their sort of line manager's name, their direct telephone number, their mobile number. You ask them a date of birth. They don't always give all this, but you can ask them. And then, and finally, your mother's maiden name. It's just like, you could just have a laugh with them, because as soon as you get out of the fear, it's quite serious, really. But because they depend on us being scared, and when you can step out of that and step back into your power, you feel very empowered, and you're not worried by them. And when you're not worried by them, they tend to go away. And if they don't go away, you just have more fun with them. And I did actually end up with a whole pile of letters about that thick, but I used to love them. And so, I used to keep it strung out a little bit. So, I didn't even... Whereas Ceylon, who I now work with on the... he looks after the forum, he actually made the letters, actually improved them by putting in fee schedules. So that, if they kept sending you letters, you'd actually start charging them. And then in the end, they'd actually owe you more than you owe them, allegedly. So, you can have a lot of fun with it. Okay, so as far as solutions go... the easiest thing to do is probably just get onto the website. It's Get Out of Debt. If you Google Get Out of Debt, we come at the top of the page, and we actually beat the government site. But get onto getoutofdebtfree.org. You can actually see it here, I think. It says on the left, it says begin here, and then it says getting started. And basically all you have to do is follow the rules. If you follow the rules, then just read up on it. Don't get overwhelmed by it. There's a lot of information, and if you get stuck, there's a forum where there's a lot of support on the forum. There's a few guys there that really like to help you, and it's just a matter of... There's a really simple one for debt collectors where we got some stickers that are basically say no contract, return to sender. I do not recognise you, I do not have an international treaty with you, I do not have a contract with you. Basically, and if you can't be bothered to print it out, you can just scrawl it across the envelope and send it back to them, because you don't have a contract with them. And so this is amazing when you realise these things. It's very empowering, and all we're trying to do is share that with other people.
To be involved in this area, you really need to know what you're doing, or be aligned with someone who does and can be relied upon. One man who seemed to know a lot more than most, and who was undoubtedly at the cutting edge, was Ceylon.
Yeah, I'm commonly known as Ceylon. Briefly, if I tell you the story of how I got to discover the whole system was corrupt, I found out about 9/11 6-7 years ago, and looked into that side of things. During the time I was running my own business and had my own house, and then in 2006 the government brought out some new legislation which basically killed my business, and by February 2008 the business was gone, the house is in the process of being repossessed. But I believe this absolutely had to happen to me to get to where I am now. It was very upsetting, but if I still was there defending a house and whatever else, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Around about 2008, after everything went tits up, I started looking into the more financial side of things, although I'd been looking into them anyway, realising the whole system was corrupt, which anyone with half a brain can see. I started looking into the financial aspects of things, and quite fortunately I came across Get Out of Debt Free as one of the sites that I'd been looking at, but it just seemed to resonate really well on there, and everyone else seemed to be of the same sort of ilk, that realised the system was corrupt and were trying to put information out to help everyone else that was struggling. which I did. I started looking deeply into the postmaster side of things, which is higher than the statute and act type of things that we know about at the moment. A friend of mine recently pointed out that if you go to court with a document, they'll stamp it and sign across it, and then if you sign across it again, you actually make yourself the postmaster. So if you ever actually go to court, you can be the postmaster, which the judge is acting as a postmaster, but if you make yourself the postmaster, you also need to sign on the back of the document as well, like you would a cheque, to endorse it basically. And when you get to that status, you basically tell them what's going on. You ask them the questions, they give you the answers, not the other way round. This is something we're just looking into of the latest stuff at the moment. We haven't got there yet, but we obviously want to make sure we know what we're doing before we get there. This debt side of things, I owed allegedly somewhere around about £50,000 worth of debt. We managed to, the house went with a little bit of equity. And realising that I'd been had over a barrel, I decided that they weren't going to get a penny, and they never did. And I started off using Jon's letters, and then as I was on the forum more and more, and I realised that loads of people were asking questions, but nobody was answering them. And as I learnt more very quickly, in fact, the information came to my knowledge, I started to answer the questions to the point now where I'm looked at as quite knowledgeable on the subject, but more beneficial is the fact that others that are now coming to the forums are doing their own research, because as I always say, just because I found this out doesn't mean it's true. Go and do your own research, check it out yourself. What that does, it gives you more power, because when you start saying something, you've looked into it and you know exactly what you're saying is correct, and it self-empowers you, which is what we're trying to do. It's dead easy to walk hand in hand with somebody through the process, which I do from time to time, and I do even have some people that come to the house and I've explained everything. In fact, on Monday I'm due to go around a friend's house to explain it all to him, because although I've done the process for him, he's still worried because he doesn't understand it, so I've got to go around and explain it to him. His wife totally gets it, but again, I don't mind. We actually enjoy explaining it to people. And then, yes, they go on the process and they're all nervous and scared at the time. And then as it goes on, you can see them change from being a nervous, scared little slave, if you want, to finally realising it's them that has the power. They have the consent. If they say no, well, it's no. And that's probably one of the biggest words that we need to get to use is no. Because when we realise how powerful that word is, you take back the power of your life.
Debt Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.